Hello and welcome to a mini or short webinar on challenging negative thinking. So mainly to do with money and the cost of living, but it can be used for pretty much anything. So I'm Stacey, I'm going to be doing this little session for you, and I would like to start off by asking you a question. We have many thoughts a day. Now, often they are unconscious, so we're not always aware of them. But I just want you to start thinking about how many thoughts do you think we do have every day? Is it 600, 6,000, 60,000, or 600,000? And the answer is C, 60,000 thoughts. So that's quite a lot, right? And if you're me, I'm always thinking, well, what does that equate to per minute, for example? I like to break things down. And the answer for that is 41 thoughts a minute. So 41 thoughts a minute, that's quite a lot. And obviously we're not all aware of them because we don't practice mindfulness enough. But it would be impossible to be aware of all of them anyway. But the point is, we have a lot of thoughts, okay? But they're not always necessarily true. So what percentage then, another little question for you, what percentage of these thoughts are negative? So is it 20, 40, 60, or 80%? And the answer to this is 80%. So 80% of our thoughts that we have, and we have thousands a day, are negative. What's also super interesting about that statistic is that most of those 80% negative thoughts are actually repeated negative thoughts. So they're the same thought churning over and over again. So that's super, super interesting. But what is also interesting about that is actually a lot of these thoughts, they're not necessarily true, okay? So we need to kind of work on that and remember that these thoughts don't always depict what's really going on. So let's have a little think about what kind of thoughts we have, because often when I speak to people about negative thinking, they're not quite sure straight away kind of what thoughts they have. So I thought I would give you some examples. And obviously we are relating this to the cost of living. So for example, I have heard many people say some of these statements. So for example, we have, I'll never be able to afford to go on holiday again. I am struggling to pay my bills. I'm rubbish at saving money. Everyone will judge me if I spend money and treat myself right now. People are going to die from the cost of living crisis. So they're quite harsh statements, but I expect, and I'm guessing, that you can probably relate to at least one of them. And I just want you to pick one, because I am going to hopefully teach you in a very short space of time. I'm going to teach you on how we can maybe tweak that a little bit. Because what I want to teach you today is a little bit of cognitive behavioural therapy. In fact, I'll tell you what cognitive behavioural therapy is. So I'm going to try and teach you cognitive behavioural therapy in like 10 minutes, which is not long, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of a foundation, maybe want to learn more, or just to, bear it in mind, basically. So cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT for short, was developed in the 1960s in America, and it is the most common talking therapy there is in the world, okay, and especially England. If you ever needed counselling or you had a severe mental health issue and you get referred to some sort of talking therapy, counselling, or psychoanalytical therapy, psychosexual therapy, but the most common is this, cognitive behavioural therapy. And in a nutshell, it's you are what you think, okay? So if you think that you will never be able to afford a holiday, then you probably won't take steps to save money and actually go on holiday, because that's your fixed belief that it's not going to happen. So therefore, you don't do anything in your life to make it happen. Okay, the actions are non-existent. But what we're going to learn in a minute is from tweaking the way we think, even if it's just a little mini tweak, we can have some really good outcomes, but it all relies on working on those thoughts that we have. Okay. Now, the great thing about CBT, if you haven't really ever heard of it that much, is it can be useful for anything. So I use it for getting me motivated to exercise. I will use it for maybe thinking when I'm rubbish at something, and maybe trying to like reframe it a bit in my head. You know, it can be used for anything, but for the purpose of this session, it is about the cost of living and those kind of negative thoughts that we have around money and the cost of living. Another one could be money is root of evil. Yeah, well, I've heard of that one quite a lot as well. So we are going to have a look at what CBT is, and I am going to teach you the CBT cycle, which is basically the foundation of what cognitive behavioral therapy is. And for anyone to learn, you know, in depth about CBT, they would always be encouraged to learn about how that cycle works in general, and then they can go on and hopefully learn about other things. So I thought I'd give it a go and try and teach you how this cycle works, because it can really help you in your life. And from a personal point of view, I have had CBT therapy myself about 10 years ago, and it changed my life. And I love teaching it now because anyone can utilize it. You don't necessarily need a therapist to work with to actually help yourself. And obviously, often therapists are needed. I'm not saying they're not. However, from a basic level, you can start doing bits and bobs yourself. Amazing. So let's go back to the thoughts again. I just want you to think of one. Now, obviously, you can pick one that you know that you have already. I sometimes think it's easier to just choose one of these, but if you have one that you know that you say, then just maybe stick it down on a bit of paper, or think of it in your head, and I will show you how this cycle works. So let's have a little look at the cycle. So from this cycle, we can see there's three main elements. So about your thought, obviously, and then what you think will always create a feeling or emotion. So in this case, on this example of the slide, it says, I'm useless, I'm a failure. So the feeling there is feeling really low and upset, right? And then that will then create a behavior, or sometimes we call it an action. And in this case, it's nothing. It's to withdraw. The action and the behavior is to feel really isolated and to withdraw. So think about your thought. Okay, so I'm going to choose one. What shall I choose? I've heard this quite a bit, so I'll choose it. So I hear a lot of people say to me, I will never be able to afford to go on holiday again. Now, it's quite a strong negative statement. How that makes that person feel emotions wise, they're probably going to feel sad. They'll probably feel angry, frustrated, annoyed. So like they're not going to feel very good, are they? And then their behavior, so that part of the cycle that says behavior, what are they going to do? Maybe they like moan about the cost of living to their friends and family. Maybe they don't save any money or don't even try to save money, because in their head they're like, no, won't be able to afford it. Basically, it's all very negative. So this one negative thought, I'll never be able to afford a holiday, it creates this cycle, but in a negative way. However, on the plus side, it can be changed a little bit, even if it's just a bit, because you can work on it. So it could be changed to, I acknowledge that I'm feeling the pinch right now, but actually, I just need to ride the wave for 6 months, and maybe when the economy starts getting a bit better, then I'll be able to start saving, and maybe I might be able to get a holiday, maybe for the end of next year. And I know it probably won't happen right now, but it can. I just got to hold tight for a little bit. Now that is a complete change, right? That thought is very different to, I will never be able to afford a holiday. It's gone from being that to being a little bit more realistic, saying actually, okay, maybe not in the next few months, but next year at some point, maybe I could start saving for a holiday. Now, the feelings, if we look at the feelings part of that cycle, the feeling is not that angry anymore. Maybe they feel a bit more hopeful. Maybe they feel tiny bit annoyed, but not half as annoyed as they did before. Their behavior as a result is to maybe start saving, even if it's like £5 a month or something. Like maybe they buy one of those money jar things and actually start putting loose change in it. Maybe they stop moaning to their friends and family about how much they are stressed about the cost of living, right? So even just tweaking that thought has completely changed that cycle, which is pretty damn good. I'll do one more example, and then hopefully you'll understand how this cycle works. So again, I always hear of people saying, I can't save, I'm rubbish at saving. And therefore they feel pretty hopeless and not very good about themselves. And then their behaviour is not to save. However, if they change their thought a little bit and said, I acknowledge that in the past I haven't been that great at saving. However, I've never really tried. So maybe even if I did save £10 a month, it's better than nothing. The feeling there, so much more hopeful, much better than before. And the behaviour is to save, even if it's £10 a month. Who cares? That's better than what it was before. And the more this person works on this cycle, the more they can tweak that thought even more. So if they keep saying to themselves, I acknowledge in the past I've been like that, but I'm all right now, or I'm working towards it. Keep working on that thought. 6 months later or whatever, you're going to be like, I'm actually good at saving. And then your feeling and your behavior is going to be bossing it. Okay. So, but it's work in progress. These things don't happen overnight. These thoughts that we have, 80% negative. That's a very general sweeping sort of statement there. But in general, people have 80% negative thoughts, and most of them are repeated. If they are repeated, they will feel very factual. So be patient with yourself and remember, even if it's just a little tweak in that thought, it can have a massive impact on that cycle, which is absolutely awesome. So some final thoughts for you. Remember, it's a thought and not a fact. Okay, that's so empowering to know that. Try and be more aware of your thoughts. Okay, this is super, super crucial. We have thousands of thoughts and we're not aware of a lot of them, and we won't be aware of all of them. It'd be impossible to be aware of every single thought that we have, but we can all be more mindful. So when we have that pop up in our head of a negative thought, you can pause it. I always pretend to do like a remote control pause and go, right, is that true? Is there anything I can do to tweak that thought? Because there always is, okay? If you notice, you can challenge it, tweak it, and then ultimately it will change that whole cycle to be more positive, which is great. We all want a bit of that, especially at the moment because everything is very negative in the media and so on. And my last thought for you is practice. What happens to us is our thoughts are very automatic. We work on a part of the brain that just goes straight guns blazing, and we don't always work on the frontal cortex, which is a bit more rational. So we do need to practice, and the more you practice, the more it becomes easier. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it definitely becomes easier. So there you go. Hopefully that's given you some food for thought there. Excuse the pun. And good luck.